In 1799, a scientist in London received a strange animal skin from Australia. He examined it closely and became convinced it was a hoax. A duck's bill, a beaver's tail, otter-like feet, someone, he assumed, had stitched several animals together as a prank. He took scissors to the skin, searching for stitches. He found none. The animal was real, and it would go on to break nearly every rule science had written about what a mammal is allowed to be. The scientist's name was George Shaw. The animal was the platypus, native to the rivers of eastern Australia. Shaw examined the specimen so carefully, under such suspicion that the cut marks he made searching for stitches are still visible on the original pelt today. It sits preserved in a museum in London, scissors marks and all. He eventually admitted it was genuine, but admitting it was real turned out to be the easy part. Figuring out what it actually was would take science more than 80 years. For decades, the scientific community was split. Some argued the platypus was a mammal. Full stop. Others insisted no mammal could possibly do what rumors said this one did, because reports from Australia claimed the platypus laid eggs. And in the 1700s and 1800s, that idea was almost heretical. Mammals nurse their young. Mammals give live birth. Everyone knew that. The argument dragged on for generations, until 1884, when a scientist named William Caldwell traveled to Australia and found the proof himself. He sent a two-word telegram back to London that ended the debate for good. Monotreme is oviparous. The platypus laid eggs. It was official, and it was only the beginning of how strange this animal would turn out to be. Here's the first rule the platypus breaks. Mammals give birth to live young. That is supposed to be one of the defining traits of the entire class. The platypus lays eggs. Leathery, soft-shelled eggs, usually just one or two at a time. The mother curls around them in a burrow, incubating them against her body for about 10 days. She belongs to a tiny group of mammals called monotremes, a lineage so ancient it split off from every other mammal on Earth before live birth had even evolved. There are only 5 monotreme species left alive today. The platypus is one of them. The other 4 are echidnas. Every other mammal on the planet, every dog, whale, bat, and human, branched off after this split. Here is the second rule it breaks. After hatching, the young still need milk. But the platypus has no nipples. Instead, milk seeps directly through pores in the mother's skin, pooling into grooves along her belly. The hatchlings press against her fur and lap it up, like drops of water collecting on a leaf. It is nursing performed without a single piece of the equipment mammals are supposed to have. Now the rule that surprises people most. Male platypuses carry a venomous spur on each hind leg, connected to a venom gland in the thigh. The venom is potent enough to kill a small animal, and to put a full-grown human in agonizing pain for days, sometimes weeks. Standard painkillers barely touch it. People who have been stung describe swelling that spreads up the entire limb, and pain so severe that some victims required hospitalization just to manage it. Almost no other mammal on Earth produces venom like this. Scientists believe the spur isn't primarily for defense at all. It becomes far more active during breeding season, which points to one likely purpose: males fighting other males for territory, and mates, a venomous weapon, evolved. Not to fight predators, but to fight each other. Now, the strangest ability of all. When a platypus hunts, it closes its eyes, ears, and nostrils completely underwater. Every major sense a hunting animal relies on, shut off at once. It should be hunting blind, deaf, and unable to smell. Instead, its bill is packed with tens of thousands of electroreceptors, capable of detecting the faint electrical signals given off by the muscles of shrimp, insect larvae, and small fish as they move. It sweeps its bill side to side underwater like a metal detector, triangulating prey purely from the electricity their bodies produce. Sharks use a version of this same sense in the ocean. The platypus evolved it independently in freshwater rivers in a mammal. It is, quite literally, hunting with a sixth sense. One more detail that caught scientists off guard. The platypus has no true stomach. Food passes almost directly from its esophagus into its intestine. Most animals rely on stomach acid to break food down before digestion begins. The platypus skips that step almost entirely, a trait shared with only a handful of other vertebrates on Earth. Piece by piece, this animal kept failing to fit into any category science had already built for it. Here's one scientists didn't discover until 2020. Researchers shining ultraviolet light on museum platypus specimens, almost by accident, noticed something no one had documented before. Under UV light, platypus fur glows blue-green. It's called biofluorescence, and it had been sitting undetected in museum collections and the wild for over 2 centuries. 200 years of study, and the platypus was still hiding secrets under a black light. Away from the headline-grabbing traits, the platypus lives a surprisingly quiet life. Adults are small, typically 15 to 20 inches long, including the tail, and usually under 5 pounds. They're semi-aquatic, spending much of the day resting in burrows dug into riverbanks and becoming active at dawn, dusk, and through the night to hunt. A platypus can eat roughly its own body weight in food every single day, diving for up to 2 minutes at a time, surfacing, then diving again sometimes hundreds of times in one session. In the wild, they can live over a decade, quietly patrolling the same stretch of river for years. Solitary, nocturnal, almost never seen by the humans who share their rivers. So how did something this strange survive, while so many ancient mammal lineages went extinct? The monotreme lineage split off the mammal family tree more than 100 million years ago, back when Australia was still fused to Antarctica as part of the supercontinent Gondwana. Fossils like Steropodon, a platypus relative from around 110 million years ago, show this body plan has been remarkably stable for an extraordinarily long time. While countless other early mammal branches were replaced or wiped out entirely, the platypus's isolated river habitat, its lack of major predators, and its bizarre toolkit of adaptations let it persist, almost unchanged, for tens of millions of years. It's not a transitional curiosity, frozen mid-evolution. It's a survivor that got its design right the first time. Think about what that means. The platypus, swimming in an Australian river today, is doing something recognizably similar to what its ancestors were doing while dinosaurs still walked the earth. Its lineage lived through the extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs, while so many others didn't. It watched mammals diversify into whales, bats, elephants, and humans, while it kept doing its own thing, largely unchanged, in the rivers of one continent. Every impossible trait it carries today is really just a very old solution that never stopped working. The platypus didn't just confuse scientists. It became a symbol. In Aboriginal Dreamtime stories from various Australian communities, the platypus appears as a creature born from a union between a water rat and a duck. Momenta mythological explanation for an animal that seems to belong to two worlds at once. Today, the platypus appears on the Australian 20-cent coin. It was Sid, one of the 3 mascots of the 2000 Sydney Olympics, representing the country's unique wildlife to a global audience. An animal once dismissed as a taxidermist's prank is now one of the most recognizable symbols of an entire nation, for all its resilience over 100 million years. The platypus is facing a challenge unlike anything in its evolutionary history. Habitat destruction, river pollution, drought, and dam construction have fragmented the waterways it depends on. Recent surveys suggest platypus populations have declined significantly across parts of their range. And in 2020, researchers recommended the species be formally listed as vulnerable to extinction. A lineage that outlasted the extinction of the dinosaurs is now facing pressure from something new. Us. The scientists who first cut open that skin, looking for stitches, were not wrong to be suspicious. The platypus really does look like it was assembled from spare parts. But every impossible trait it carries, the eggs, the venom, the electric sense, the glowing fur, is the result of over 100 million years of evolution, going its own way, and quietly getting it right. Nature didn't break its own rules to make the platypus. It just wrote a different set of rules, a very long time ago, and never found a reason to change them. If you want the next "This Animal Shouldn't Exist" story, subscribe. We've got 7 more like this one coming.